We now begin our look at the pre-Socratics, specifically the Milesians. The first of these we'll look at is our good dead friend Thales. He was around from about 624 to 545 BC, and is of course still dead today. He lived in Miletus, which was a Greek port city in what was then known as Ionia, what is now known as Western Asia Minor. The city was a trading city with extensive contact with other cultures, and one thing you'll see often with the early philosophers and later philosophers is having contact with other cultures, the diversity of ideas. Now Thales, in his time, solved many engineering problems. He also developed navigational instruments and techniques. So why is he important philosophically? Well, for a variety of reasons. One reason is he is credited with beginning the debate over the ultimate nature of reality. Part of this is the problem of the one and the many. So Thales sought to find the unity underlying the diversity of the world. The problem of the one and the many involves determining the basic principle or thing that accounts for everything. Now, some in the sciences still pursue this goal, trying to find the one thing that accounts for everything. For example, in physics, they're looking for, or some are looking for, what is sometimes called the grand unified theory or total unified theory, a theory that accounts for everything. Or looking for the fundamental entity, perhaps a particle or something that makes up everything. So what did Thales take to make up everything? Well, unfortunately, we don't have Thales' writings, but we do have the writings of Aristotle. And according to our good dead friend Aristotle, Thales claimed that water is a fundamental source of everything. Now, today, of course, this would seem, obviously wrong, but again, Thales is starting philosophy and starting science, and as we'll see, his reasoning is pretty good given, those conditions. So Aristotle claimed that Thales had this view because water is essential to life, and also seeds are moist, at least when they're not dried up. Also, water can be transformed into solid, frozen as ice. It can become a gas in the form of steam, and as Thales noticed, rain falls to earth, mist rises up, and evaporation leaves sediment. Now this is well before they had microscopes, so water would evaporate, leaving behind stuff, like on the coast, and a natural non-silly inference would be that water somehow transforms into, something else. And of course, when you dig down into the earth, it's by the coast, you'll find water. Now we don't know his actual arguments, because Aristotle, said he had this view, but we don't have the actual writings of Thales, so it's rather secondhand. In addition to the problem of the one and the many, Thales also advanced what's known as the problem of permanence and change. So, suppose we accept that there is a single basic entity. How does that basic entity, like water, become other things? Because if we look at the world, we see there's more than just water. There's more than just one thing. So, problem. Now, one explanation that Thales gave, at least, again, according to other people presumably reporting what he supposedly said, Thales seemed to claim that all things are full of gods. But this doesn't seem to be religious. What he seemed to be holding is that the power of animation and change resides in the things that change. For example, take magnets. How do they work? Well, Thales' answer was this, that the magnetism of a magnet is an animate causal power in the inert stone. So this notion of powers being in things. And this later gets adopted by other philosophers. So Thales, pretty important guy. So why else is our good dead friend Thales also important? Well, here are kind of his main contributions, in addition to some people credited him with being the originator of both philosophy and science. So first, he presented the first known form of monism. And again, when we're talking about, ancient thinkers, we always have to be cautious because we've lost so many writings, we've lost so much information, that as far as we know, he's the first person to do this. Is that actually the case? Well, without time travel or some new discoveries, we won't know for sure. So he presented the first form of monism, which is the view that there is one basic ontological kind. Or alternatively, there's one principle of explanation, from Mono 1. And again, for him, this was water. Those following Thales often adopted this assumption of monism. There is one thing. And this continues to this day, because in addition to monism, he also presented, as far as we know, the first example of philosophical materialism, sometimes called physicalism. And this is the idea that the basic metaphysical entity is a physical thing, often a substance. And again, for him, this is water. The world is a material world made of one thing, water. Now, today, no philosopher or scientist thinks the world is made of water, but there are many materialist monists around today. In fact, most scientists tend to be materialists, same with philosophers. Not all, of course. Now, in addition to the monism and the materialism, he also made important contributions in terms of method. He asked questions aimed at theoretical understanding, as opposed to merely practical questions, although, as we noted, he did some practical things. He also presented and supported a theory that other people could examine and debate. He did not appeal, as far as we believe, to tradition or authority, which is kind of a key part of doing philosophy. Although we'll see, later, eventually philosophers fall into simply citing tradition or authority, often in the Middle Ages. And so what we often see in the history of philosophy is, rebellion against tradition and authority, accepting tradition and authority, rebelling against it, etc. So that brings us to the end of our good dead friend, Thales.